Labour has unveiled a campaign poster showing the Tory leader David Cameron as the character Gene Hunt from the TV series Ashes to Ashes. The message, "Don't let him take Britain back to the 1980s", aims to remind voters of the social unrest and youth unemployment whilst the Conservatives were in power. It's the first official poster created by a member of the public. Well, joining me live from the launch of that poster campaign is the Foreign Secretary David Miliband, and with him is his brother and fellow Cabinet Minister and Energy and Climate Change Secretary Ed Miliband. Good to talk to you both. Now, of course, you're claiming this is a huge success, this campaign poster, but the Conservatives are already saying that it's a little bit of an own goal. They say that comparing David Cameron to an iconic TV character is something they wish they'd thought of themselves.
Well, I think that the member of the public that you referred to, who won our People's Poster competition, was trying to make a very serious political point, which is that the Conservative Party hasn't changed, that the policies that they're presenting would rerun the division and the decay of the 1980s, and I think that's a very important point. There's a bit of humour. Millions of people watched Ashes to Ashes last night, and I think that it's in tune with the times in that sense.
Yeah, you say it's funny, but, you know, Gene Hunt is universally seen as somebody who's popular, who's working class, and who's very funny. Are these attributes that you're wanting people to associate David Cameron with?
No, I think it's a rather different message that's conveyed by the poster, which is that the 1980s are good for rerun drama, they're not good for rerun politics. And our country has moved on a long way. It's a fairer, richer country, a more united country than it was 20 or 30 years ago, and we don't want to turn the clock back. David Cameron joined the Conservative Party out of admiration for what Mrs. Thatcher did to Britain. We joined the Labour Party because we despaired at the decay and the division that Mrs. Thatcher was bringing to Britain.
I don't know if you've seen the Tory party spoof of your picture already. It pictures Gordon Brown there, sitting on an Austin Maxi. It's not quite as rock and roll as your spoof of David Cameron, is it? Back to the debt decline and 1970s, they say.
But I think there's a very big difference here, which is that we've learned lessons from what happened in the 1970s, and nobody thinks Britain's about to return to the 1970s. The truth is that, as my brother said, David Cameron hasn't said the philosophy of the 1980s was wrong, and everything he's doing, everything he's done over the last 18 months, whether it's saying we shouldn't have nationalised Northern Rock, whether it's saying that we shouldn't be offering a guarantee to young people that they won't be unemployed for more than 6 months, all of it shows that same philosophy that led us down the problems of the 1980s, which says the only thing government's good for is getting out of the way. I don't think that's what the British people want, and I don't think they want to throw back to that era.
How optimistic are the pair of you? I mean, we don't know when Gordon Brown is going to announce an election, but the likelihood is it could be as early as Tuesday. We could be only 4 days away from a general election campaign. Do you think that Labour have got it in the bag, realistically?
Did you say you think Labour have got it in the bag?
Exactly.
I think that if we claimed we were certain to win, that would take optimism to newfound levels. What I believe very, very strongly is that as the election gets closer, the Labour answers are getting clearer and sharper, and the Tory answers are getting fuzzier and hazier and weaker. And that is why there is a real sense of buzz in the Labour campaign. We don't have Lord Ashcroft's millions of pounds, but we do have tens of thousands of volunteers around the country who are engaging in real conversation with the voters who are sceptical and cynical about politics but want the future of their country to be debated in a serious way.
Can I also ask you about the big difference, of course, of this election campaign is going to be the leaders' debates, one of which is going to be on Sky News. Peter Mandelson in the Times newspaper today has talked about Gordon Brown and admitted that he's not perhaps a natural performer. Ed Miliband, can I ask you, are you worried about how he will do in the debates?
No, I think he'll do very well in the debates, because I think the debates will be a very important moment when we expose the substantive choices that we face at this election. George Osborne said this morning that he'll have an emergency budget within 50 days of the election. He'll cut £6.5 billion off public spending. That will be a real risk to the recovery. Those are the kind of arguments you will see Gordon Brown making in the debates. And I think that we have better answers to these questions of how we sustain the recovery, how we protect frontline public services, and how we build the economy of the future.
And David Miliband, Peter Mandelson also seemed to suggest that Gordon Brown may potentially not even serve a full 5 years if he did get back into power. He talked about 5 more years or 4 or 3 or however many it is with a person that they know and can depend on, talking about voters there. Do you think Is it realistic, if Gordon Brown were to win this election, that he would then not serve a full term?
No, I think the overwhelming presumption, my overwhelming presumption, the overwhelming presumption of the whole cabinet, of the whole party, is that he would serve a full term, and quite right too.
If he wasn't willing to serve a full term, would you be willing to step into his shoes?
My overwhelming presumption is that he will serve a full term, so I think that a hypothetical discussion of that is really not what's on the cards. I look forward to being part of a Labour government. Remember, my predecessor, Ernest Bevin, as Labour Foreign Secretary between 1945 and 1951, did 6.5 years, so I'm not even halfway there yet.
Ed and David Miliband, good to talk to you both at the launch of your Gene Hunt poster campaign.
Thank you.
Thanks.